Hello, welcome everybody. We're live with Velshi and Rule. I'm Velshi.
And I'm not Rule.
Molly's young fast, who is our great friend and she's kind of family to us, right? And like Stephanie are kind of like family to each other. So Molly's joining me. Later on, we're going to have Caleb Silver here taking some of your economic questions. So Molly, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
The nature of the show, you've done it with me before. The nature of the show, it's a little bit unplugged. You can swear a little bit more and things like that.
Yes.
And the producers really like to come out of the gate hot with some topic that's really good because I've heard that on social media like that's more important. They don't want the big wind-ups and stuff. But I'm very unplugged today because I'm very tired. Like tired as if I should be in bed tired.
Yeah.
And hence I'm disorderly. And
yes,
my thoughts are in no particular formation. And
welcome to my world.
Yes, it's fun. Like this is actually
can be me.
These are the fun moments in my brain, right? It's like
yes.
You want to talk about anything you want to talk about, we're good to go. Long Island Railroad was on strike for a few days.
That's right.
Crazy stuff was happening. But I was, as you know, the reason I'm tired and like I'm not a derelict or anything like that, but this is the shirt and vest that I was wearing on TV last night.
You Koranaki'd it.
Yes, and I kind of have basically lived in it. So
yeah.
We were doing primaries last night, and last night was what you call sort of like a mini Super Tuesday. It was a lot of states, and they all had interesting stories to tell. And what I think is fun, I think you know this too as a journalist, when you write a story or you cover a story a lot, and you get a little distance from it, it's published, you can explain that to somebody in 45 seconds. You can say, this is what this was really all about. Yeah. I can't actually tell you what last night was about. So many different things happened last night in Pennsylvania, in Kentucky, in Georgia, and Alabama, and then Idaho. Like it's not a straight narrative, but the narrative right. I got from Chris Hayes. He was on TV and he said something interesting. That look at all the polling; it's all the same, right? Trump's approval, right. Disapproval. I think we can put it up there. We've got Trump's job approval sinks to second term low. His approval in the New York Times Siena poll is 59%. The disapproval is 37%. Right?
Right.
I'm sorry. The approval is 37%. So take the 37%. The point that Chris Hayes was making is that of that 37% who approve of Donald Trump, they 100% approve of Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are much more solid than if you saw that number for Joe Biden or for the Democrats or whatever the case is. Where I think he's doing a fine job. That 37%, I think Donald Trump can not only shoot them but set them on fire, and somehow they would still be there for him. And that played out last night to some degree.
Right. And that's been playing out this whole time, which is Trump's revenge tour focuses on yes. MAGA, going into these primary contests. Thomas Massie is a good example. We saw
yep.
it with Bill Cassidy the week before,
Louisiana
where
Senator.
he did, in fact, vote to confirm RFK Jr., but his original sin was
voting to impeach.
Right, voting to impeach, and also not moving Casey Means,
yes.
who was trying to become yes. Surgeon General.
But he's a doctor. Cassidy's a doctor. Like he has better standing than most everybody in the Senate to be able to take a strong position on something that actually has to do with health.
Oh, it's completely insane. And also, you might add that Louisiana has this very MAGA governor who is right
yes.
now in Greenland,
yes.
Doing a Trump tour. These MAGA governors do everything they can to suck up to Trump. But he changed the way the primaries work now. They were open
yes.
primaries, and now
yes.
they're Republican primaries. So Cassidy really did not have a shot.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw. And so what I think is the top line here is that in these very tight primaries, in the primaries, the MAGA primaries, the Republican primaries, in the very red states, like what we're seeing with Massie, Trump still has his
he's got juice there.
Yeah.
By the way, questions. Send us your questions at VelshiRule at ms.now via email. We have some of your questions that are recorded. We're going to play those, and you can put questions into the chat for us, and we will try and answer. And sometimes we know the answers, sometimes we don't, but I'm so unplugged today that you can ask me anything, like literally ask me anything. Like I'm in a position to talk to you about the difference between endives and endives,
yes.
Anything. Also, the other thing, Molly, I have my cool podcast mic here.
Yes, I do too.
Where's yours? Oh, okay, good. I
There
didn't
we
know
go.
yours was there. This is a
did
new
I?
thing to me. I don't understand why this is like a thing. Everybody who podcasts has to have one of those. And if you do those videos on TV, Christina, my producer, gives me like a little square mic
Yes,
that you
the
can
little
clip.
square.
Yeah.
But
Lot of,
mine is a special one for people with really bad ADHD. So it can hear me when I'm in weird places.
oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I'm trying my new one out. All right. So, Thomas Massey, let's just start there.
Yeah.
Thomas Massey is what you would call a gadfly or a thorn
Right.
in Donald Trump's side. I don't probably share a lot of opinions with him, although there have been some in the last year where I have, i.e., released the Epstein files. But I have to say, I hold him up as an example of this is a guy who has beliefs and follows them. His beliefs, while they are not mine, and he is a fairly right-wing conservative, I believe he comes by them naturally. He's not a gaslighter.
Right.
He's not sucking up to Trump, and he's being punished as if he did something illegal or bad or whatever the case is. In a world where politics should be, Thomas Massey, you and I are, in the same political party, but don't really share views. How interesting, how great for our country that our political parties are big tents and we can have Democrats who don't agree with Democrats and Republicans who don't agree with Republicans. Thomas Massey's sin was not being all Trump all the time.
Yes, but I would add outside spending really plays a role here. AIPAC spent $7 million
It's
to
the
get
most
this.
expensive congressional primary race in the history of America.
Right. And when you look at Bill Cassidy, the Senate candidate from the week before, Maha spent $1 million in that race.
Which is crazy, because
Crazy.
even though he didn't like Casey Means, he did vote for
voted for
RFK Jr.
Jr.
against his
Yeah.
better judgment. The doctor in the Senate voted for RFK Jr.
RFK Jr. lied and said he wasn't
Yeah.
going to mess with the vaccine schedules, and then immediately did.
And then Maha spends $1 million against him. Like, what's up and what is down in this country? The
and
AIPAC
also-
thing is an interesting story because AIPAC has gone from being the biggest PAC or that sort of lobbying type organization whose primary interest is another country other than the U.S.
Right.
in the U.S. But it's becoming more, and I don't really care about the sensitivity or not sensitivity, but it's becoming more like the NRA. It's a racket.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's you vote for us, and if you minutely change or add nuance to your view, you're done. So in the case of New Jersey, they had what was his name? He was running to be reelected. He had been the congressman, and he was running to be reelected, and
he was
had
Jewish. And
and it was he was a supporter of Israel, strong supporter of Israel, and had said
not Gottheimer.
No, it's not God. The one who got defeated by the progressive candidate who has won. Anyway, it'll come to me in a second.
Yeah.
All he said is we should consider whether or not we should do something about the offensive weaponry that we give Israel. That's it. It wasn't a statement. It wasn't I'm not on Israel's side or anything like that. So they took out ads against him.
Bill Hathaway.
No, still not. It'll come to me. Tom Malinowski.
Malinowski. Yes.
Malinowski. So they spend money against him, in theory, because they want a different candidate to win. But then this third candidate, who's a progressive candidate, wins, who's got very, very strong views that AIPAC does not share on Israel. And so that was an own goal.
Right.
But the amount of money that is going into these things, I think, is unusual because certainly in the Democratic Party and to some degree in the Republican Party, because Massey also is a supporter of Israel. He just didn't feel he was a bit of an isolationist. He's a bit of a libertarian. Doesn't necessarily think that we should be having that much money on things. Didn't really like the way the Gaza war was going.
Right.
And AIPAC decided it was going to spend millions of dollars to get him out. And they use different names. AIPAC doesn't give the check as AIPAC. They create little organizations that sound very friendly to your community.
Right. And there's a number of reasons why this is, to me, as a Reformed Jew, there are a number of reasons why I find this a little scary, right? Because there are people who will look at this race and not be able to differentiate what is AIPAC in the state of Israel and what is Jewish people writ large.
Right.
So that, in my mind, is a little worrying, especially because this, the lesson that AIPAC wants people to get from this is that you don't cross AIPAC.
Right. Yes, that's correct.
And
that's the NRA comparison that I made. That basically you do what we need you to do, and everything's good.
Yeah.
And if you don't, we'll throw you out.
Right. And that, I think, is pretty scary for any number of reasons. And in a world where anti-Semitism is growing, it's pretty...
This can fall into the wrong hands.
Yeah.
That's exactly right, because you should be able to not like what AIPAC is doing and not like what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing, as many Israelis do not like what he's doing.
For sure.
And hate anti-Semitism and want to fight it in your city, in your country, and around the world as it should be fought. And there have been a number of groups who, in their own interest, have blended these things in a way that confuse people, and it's fine to be confused if you're a regular person, but it feeds into racism and bigotry and anti-Semitism and sometimes Islamophobia. We need a world that just comes together and says none of this stuff is what we want our country to be and our world to be, and unfortunately this messes it up a little bit.
And Florida has this candidate who's a young MAGA who is basically running as an anti-Semite.
Yes.
So there
it's wild.
Right. So there's a real vein of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
I mean, people like to say that it's stronger on the left. I do not agree, but there are certainly pundits who claim that. But it's there.
It's there. The idea that all these years after thinking we'd have dealt with these things, very much like we thought when we elected a black president, we were in a post-racial society. We're not. We're not in a post-anti-Semitic society. We're not in a post-racial anything. I guess the lesson we all must take is that these are fights we're going to have, we're going to keep on having, and we're going to have them for time to come. I do agree with this. I don't know where there's more or less anti-Semitism, but there's certainly more of that kind of stuff out there. There are people who run their elections, whether it's about Islamophobia or anti-Semitism or anti-trans stuff. They just say it out. They're out there talking about it.
And we have Republican members of Congress who have said Islamophobic things, like Randy Fine, I think is his name, that are atrocious. I mean, just beyond the pale. And if they said it about any other group, they would be censured.
We need to get back to being a country where this is not. We have a First Amendment, and I will, as you know, I love protecting that, and I've got the Banned Book Club, and I will fight for people's rights to say bad things. But I would really like people to invest in being better about this multicultural country that we're in. Christina, what have we got? We got a question you were telling me about, I think. There we go. Okay, this is a great question. This is from Jokin Boken via chat. Love the name. Does disapproval of Trump lead to votes for Democrats? I think this is the most important question right now to ask, because Donald Trump's disapproval is monumental. Like, we have not seen disapproval numbers like this forever. But it doesn't match when you say, if the election were tomorrow and I were voting for a member of Congress, it doesn't correlate. Far more people say they'll vote for Republicans than will vote for would vote for Donald Trump, and in theory, you don't have another choice to vote for Donald Trump. So the Democrats have a tighter go of it. Number one. Number two, the gerrymandering battles are being won for the moment by the Republicans, and number three, Democratic leadership, given the day, sometimes feels like they're in the right place and sometimes feels like they're a little out of touch with what the base wants. So I'm a little concerned that this grand blue wave that everybody's talking about for November is being chipped away at.
I think there's a Tea Party scenario here. And if you look at the Democratic races, 30% of all Democratic incumbents are being primaried. So those are pretty astounding numbers. So I would say it's a blue wave with lots of caveats.
Right.
And will leadership survive this midterm cycle? It's anybody's guess.
Is it your sense, though, because I was talking to Hakeem Jeffries about this the other day, and he said, we've got these great primary processes and people should do whatever they want, but the Democratic Party supports incumbents.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I get it. I get why a party does that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's what the moment calls for. I've met a lot of these people who are challengers to the incumbents. They're pretty impressive. They feel like they might do some interesting things. I don't know.
Well, I think that's going to be a real problem for Schumer. There are some Democratic incumbents that Schumer backed that have already dropped out, like Janet Mills,
Yep.
or who are really struggling, like Haley Stevens in Michigan.
Yep.
And Michigan's a great example. This is a really rough three-way primary
Yep.
where Haley Stevens is a member of Congress, so she had gotten this endorsement
Yep.
from Chuck. But the reality is that the other two candidates are much better candidates, and so she's really struggled, and we've seen that a lot. So I think Chuck Schumer he's done well with North Carolina, right? He got Cooper
Roy
to
Cooper,
run.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he did well with Ohio. He
Yep.
got Sherrod Brown to run.
Yep.
But some of these other, I mean, a great one is, and this is something people haven't talked about because it's such a blue state, but Minnesota, the lieutenant governor,
Yep.
Peggy Flanagan, who
Yep.
has been on your show
Yep.
and has been on my podcast, is really great. She's an Indigenous woman. She has this amazing story. And Schumer endorsed Angie Craig, who's
Right.
not nearly as good a candidate and who's not the lieutenant governor of the state.
Right.
So a lot of this doesn't make a ton of sense. And I think that may end up hurting Schumer. Now, that said, Hakeem may benefit from Schumer being hurt. Like, you could see a world where they decide, and we've seen reporting every which way that there's, Chris Murphy is interested in it, and Chris Coons is interested in
Yep.
it. There are a bunch of people
They
who
both
would
talk more like
the job.
fighters, or they talk more in the language of what a lot of people in the Democratic base are talking. But I'm a big fan of political parties.
Right.
There being more than one functioning one.
Yes.
And I'm a big fan of them being large tents.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be hyper-specific interests. And Marjorie Taylor Greene actually posted about Thomas Massey. I'm a man of a certain age, so when I read small things, I have to. There's not even a way I could read that with my glasses.
Listen,
Okay, let's
I
try
have
it.
transitions, but I can't see this.
All right,
This
I
doesn't
can
look like
bear-
letters.
That's right. It doesn't look like letters. I think my producer's just punking me. Thanks, Christina.
Yeah.
It says, Marjorie Taylor Greene says, there were only 4 of us Republicans that signed the discharge petition to force the vote to release the Epstein files. Thomas Massey, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, and myself. Trump has come after us one by one ever since then. The president told Speaker Johnson not to allow the vote to happen, but we courageously went against the president and refused to budge and overrode the speaker to force the vote on record. It was only when all members of Congress had to vote on record did Republicans find their intestinal fortitude to do the right thing and vote yes to release the files. Until then, they were absurdly obedient to the president, who was doing everything in his reign of terror to hold them back. Even now, all the files are still not released and the Epstein class remains protected. Wars are being waged, the markets are being manipulated, and the average American is being driven further into ruin while the Epstein class reigns and has yet to face any accountability. I will never regret signing that discharge petition, refusing to back down, and resigning, as I want nothing to do with the president and a party that bows to the Epstein class. Wow.
Yeah. Again, though, I would preface this with, the sort of worst person meme. Like, she is
right.
correct.
We're reading Marjorie Taylor Greene
Right.
quotes on our show, right? And,
Right.
and if not that, it's Tucker Carlson quotes. Like, what
Right.
a world.
She's correct, but I
Yes.
would say with lots of caveats. I think AOC had a good point. She's lined up on the right side of things, just like Tucker Carlson. Tucker
Yes.
Carlson's anti-war, but I don't
But
want
he
to
got a lot of other views that you want nothing to do with.
pretty atrocious. And
Yeah.
and the anti-Semitism is clearly part of the anti-war on this one. So while I do think this bravery is good, I also wonder why a Thomas Massey, now that he has lost his seat, why, and I know he won't, but like part of me feels like, why can't these people give up their party affiliation, be an independent, caucus with the Democrats, and make Hakeem the speaker for a couple months?
Right.
I don't get that.
Yeah, well, Thomas Massey said something interesting last night in his concession speech. He said he named all the things that have been done in the Epstein file, and he said that was just in the last 6 months. I have 7 more months as a
Right.
member of Congress. So he was implying something. Marjorie Taylor Greene left. She resigned. Liz Cheney tried to run again, and they primaried her out. Thomas Massey said something interesting. I got 7 months left. I don't know what that means, and I don't know what he's going to do. He did have the ability to cross lines, which is almost impossible these days. I mean, it used to be a real thing, Molly. Members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats would share like apartments and things like that. They would live together. They would, play sports together and things like that. And there's just so little of crossing of lines these days. And part of that is the way our politics have gone. And it's fundraising. They're all busy fundraising all the time. But part of it is Donald Trump. He has made it into a cult. Either you're with him or you're not with him. And Thomas Massie didn't want to be part of the cult.
Yeah, I mean, also, Cassidy did in fact vote for the War Powers Act. So we saw that, and Tom Tillis, who's not running again. So
He's got a lot. Tom Tillis from North Carolina. He's got a lot to say these days. Like, where were you when? He has this thing. Tom Tillis says, "If only I knew what I know now about RFK or Pete Hegseth." It's like, what are you talking about, man? We knew all of that. Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, look, this bravery is good, especially when you're in a sort of 911 situation, which we really are. Look, the Supreme Court, put this decision out there early so that Republicans could redistrict the South and, and dismantle the Congressional Black Caucus and take away seats that belong to them. I mean, this is anti-democratic, if you looked in a textbook. So we are clearly in a very precarious moment. And even though Democrats have the numbers and Donald Trump is doing a lot of wildly unpopular stuff, until this midterm is over, until these people are seated, I'm not going to feel particularly relaxed.